everyone.
Hi everyone, I'm Adia and this is Macy, and we're going to be talking about our Wellness Wednesday topic for today. We typically spend our Wellness Wednesdays just talking about a mental health topic that we've chosen to destigmatize mental health and to raise awareness.
This Wednesday's topic is about disordered eating. We chose this because February is National Eating Disorder Awareness Month, and we just felt like it would be super fitting, especially because coming into college and being a college student, there's a lot of like fixation around food and eating and just like the overall relationship with food. So we just feel like this would be a good time to share our relationships and what we've kind of gone through. So yeah.
Totally. Yeah, I think for the average college student, it can just be really difficult to maintain even a neutral or healthy relationship with food. There are a lot of factors that go into that, but kind of deviating from your household or legal guardians or whoever you would call your family can be really impactful in many ways. It can be beautiful, but also it can be really harmful, specifically in terms of losing that type of schedule. And with losing a schedule can come losing the schedule of eating.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I know that I've talked about this before, but especially this year, I feel like I've overcommitted myself sometimes, some weeks more than others. But because of that, I will like forget to eat in the morning, and then I'll get so busy and then I'll like forget that I'm hungry, and then I'll come home and be like, "Oh my gosh, like I forgot to eat breakfast and lunch." And then I'll try to eat like all my 3 meals because I like know that that's not healthy for my body or like my mental state or anything. But then also like feeling like guilty about that or bad about that, and then trying to like replenish all at one time like isn't going to do me any good anyways. So I think like what I found to be really helpful is just like putting reminders for like everything, and like getting, I think I eat a lot of protein bars in the morning because I do have early classes, and I think that has just been like a lifesaver because it takes a while, like if you have an 8 a.m. to like get up and then make like an actual breakfast and then like get to class on time, especially if like you're a commuter student or something. So I think something that's helped me is just scheduling in, even not even scheduling in, but just like putting a reminder on your phone to like eat a snack, or like have you eaten today, or like how much water have you had today, or just like something like that. Um, yeah, so I think that it's very common, not only for me, but from a lot of people that I've talked to, that like people miss in college, people miss a lot of meals just because they're so busy and they forget.
Totally. Yeah. I feel like it's almost harder not to miss meals than to have some routine. I think for me, it was very similar, like, especially the beginning of this year. I'm a sophomore. And so this is my first real year on campus. When
Mm,
I'm on Zoom, I'm able to like eat.
mm,
And there's just a lot that comes with that. But I realized that this semester and the past semester as well, but this semester was more of like, it was really in my face because I started feeling so fatigued and I was like, did I eat? I'm like, no. But I remember just kind of thinking about my food schedule because one of my friends was talking to me and she like has a really great schedule. She eats in the morning and then she has her little lunch and then her dinner, and they're typically around the same time every day.
mm.
And that made me really think because I was like, I don't do that. I think some days my breakfast is at 12 p.m. Some days my breakfast is dinner. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's not healthy. And I do not promote that. And in fact, of like really trying to go away from that. But it's that reality of like, it is so impossible. I also want to mention how I've spoken to a lot of freshmen and commuter students who like their time for food is also very limited. For me, I live in the mods, so I'm able to have, and I know you live in like the apartments, so we're
Mhm.
both in our own ways able to get groceries and make
Right.
food. And like some of my friends who are freshmen, they're mainly dependent on, let's say, the dining hall or
Mhm.
the den or Starbucks or Shalom Cafe. So although I'm grateful we have these options, it's also super limited. Like the dining hall is open for a couple hours here and there. People have classes during that time, and then it's just so difficult. And
Yeah.
so to feel like you have to place your basic necessities such as food as something that is less than a priority and maybe even something that like you try to get to if you can is not healthy in any way, but it also like after acknowledging it's not healthy, we want to get to a place where we're like, okay, where do we go from here?
Yeah. I think, talking about freshmen, that reminds me when I was a freshman, like, a lot this is so weird. A lot of the places, like, on-campus places were, like, closed on the weekends. I don't know if that's still the case now, but I
Yeah.
remember, like, going to the store and, like, ordering food, and now that I think about this, I'm like, that was so, like, not right, and I, like, hurt for the people who, like, still have to do that if they do have to do that, but, like, I think that really changed my
Yeah.
relationship with food too, because I feel like now I have to buy, like, so much extra, um, and, like, I don't wanna waste it all because, like,
Yeah.
I either spent money on it or, like, I whatever, and I feel like just, like, even if it was a weekend, like, not knowing where that was gonna like, the food was gonna come from if, like, on-campus food wasn't open, like, I don't know, I feel like I see that now, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I have to buy, like, 5 things of strawberries when I, like, can't even eat one."
No,
So
100%, 100%. I pulled up yesterday with I love Sprouts. It's like my home. And so I went to Sprouts and I got like this huge box of strawberries. And I looked at it and I was like, am I gonna eat 40 strawberries? Like, you know what I mean? So I totally get that. Just wanting to overcompensate in a way, or even
yeah,
like, do we have enough time to grocery shop? Sometimes
right.
it's we don't. And so it's hard for sure. And I think like I wonder if it a lot of that has to do with maybe even what we've seen in our households and like modeling things like
Mhm.
that. I know you've talked a little bit about that. Do you want to share about your experience?
Yeah. Yeah, I just think, like, this because this week or this month is, like, disordered eating awareness, I think, like, things have been coming up, not necessarily maybe disordered eating, but just like, "Oh, that was weird, like, why did I do that, and, like, where did that come from?" And I think a lot of it came from, like, being little and, like, going to the grocery store with, like, my parents and seeing them, like, check the labels, like, very religiously, and not necessarily like this is a bad thing at all, but I do think that it's changed my relationship with food in the sense of, like, "Oh, what I eat at home is only like this many calories versus the one that I have at school right now is like however many more, or it's like a different brand. Like, is that okay? Like, is that should I be eating that?" Um, and I think that's such a weird concept that I've like learned that over time just from like watching someone.
Yeah.
Um, and I think like it is good to read the labels to like know it's in your food, but I also think like if you're looking at it like religiously and be like, oh, like this is like too much for me and it's like an okay product, I think like that can be kind of harmful a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, I completely resonate with that. And I think for me there are a lot of similar things. It's so imperative that because it is this month that we're just like we should every month, but specifically this month as we're
Mhm.
spotlighting eating disorders and disordered eating, body image, everything that really like stems from that huge umbrella term. Um, there's just so much that is interconnected with that, but I think it's an important time that we're spotlighting this, and it's also a time where we're not just talking about how this is the national whatever month. Like
Right, yeah.
it's more than that. It's how does this affect you? Let's take some time to introspect. And I think we've both done that. And this is something I've always known that I'm coming to realize more and more, specifically living on my own. I think having that detachment is something I'm, again, appreciative of, but I'm realizing what my life has really looked like. And I would say another thing is having roommates. I'm seeing like how
Mm,
their lifestyles are, their relationships with food,
yeah,
which that can have a really bi-directional type of relationship. We can really feed off of that in a healthy way or an unhealthy way.
mhm.
But then another aspect of that is me realizing, for example, my roommates who are like in another room right now. So I hope they don't think I'm talking about them, but they bake a lot. and a lot for see, I'm even saying a lot because that's like not normal for me. But they bake like maybe once a week and they make little cookies and they make little cakes. And it's just like such a sweet thing for me to see because they're like having these really beautiful moments together and they love to bake and they're also really good at it. I can't bake, I burn everything. But that's a whole other issue, like so whole other issue that I have to get to at some point in life. But they bake and I like am really not used to that and it honestly kind of
Mhm.
stresses me out and it has nothing to do with them, but it's the fact that like I am fixated with like staying clean,
Right. Yeah.
whatever that means, literally quotes. And like being having this like relationship with food that I always thought was healthy, but the more I realize that I don't think it actually is. And
Mhm.
then with what you were saying when it comes to family, I come from a family who is extremely like health conscious and I'm grateful for that. Don't get me wrong. Like I like to know what fuels my body, what is nourishing, what is healthy for me, but it comes to a point when it can become obsessive 100%. And I was just telling you like before we were talking that at my household like the most unhealthy things sweets wise that we'd own is probably like dates. And then when it comes to more savory things, the most unhealthy we have are skinny pop popcorn. Like that is not that's my normal, but it's not like normal in light of health and in light of
Right.
balanced eating and like
I
stuff like
think I think I don't know, I don't think that's necessarily like unhealthy, but
that.
I
Mhm.
think if you like go down the snack aisle and you're like, "Oh, I can't have any of these," because like that's not what we did at my home like growing up. I think that's when it can be like maybe unhealthy, but I
Totally.
think I guess like if you're restricting yourself or if you have like a guilt about it, I think
Yeah.
that's when it becomes harmful because maybe like I don't know, maybe they just like do like dates and that's like what's really good to them and like sweet and like is a treat. But I think like I know for me if I know like some of my roommates have like Oreos or like chips and stuff like that and I never really had that growing up and so when I see them doing that or not doing that but like eating those I'm like I don't even know where I would go to like get that in the
No.
store
Yeah.
and like how I would feel about I think I would feel like so not so, but just like, "Whoa, what am I doing? I can't have this." Which it's not even a bad thing because if you're putting everything in moderation, like having chips or having
Exactly.
Doritos, like whatever. So, I don't
Exactly.
know.
I totally agree. And it's really hard to deconstruct that. I'm in that space too where like for example for my mom, she is so happy to have her dates. Like she has a little date peanut butter toast every morning. She's so like that is a treat to her. She truly has a really I would say healthy relationship with food. But for me, I have the same thing. I have no idea where you would get Oreo. Truly. Like no clue. And I like am not having those types of treats in my everyday life and that's something I want to be better at. Um but for sure it can be difficult and I think there is just a lot with college specifically when it comes to food. Like we already have us trying to deconstruct everything from our parents but also trying to hold on to some security. And then
Right,
there's this worry about freshman 15 which like we could talk about in a second. And then there are limitations with hours and dining hall hours or whatever. And then
right.
there's this like culture of eating outside, which we'll also get to, and choosing between studying or choosing between food and studying or classes and food. Um, all of these are really important, but also can be so unhealthy when it's just
Mhm.
treated in a harmful way.
Right. Yeah. Um, I think thinking about like freshman 15, I remember like I bought a scale and like had it in like my dorm room because I was so worried that I was gonna like gain all this weight because I've always heard about like oh freshman 15 like oh
Mhm.
freshman 15 and I would never like I would walk everywhere which I think is like very healthy and I I'm like thankful I did that because it was like a good time to like talk to my mom which I did all the time but I would like specifically like be mindful of like oh not driving or not like taking the trolley or whatever because I didn't want freshman 15. It wasn't like in the mindset of, oh, I want to walk because I want to walk. It was for like a
Right.
different reason. So I feel like that is something, but it's also like I didn't need to have a scale. And now I don't even own one and I don't weigh myself. And I feel like that's been a very freeing
Yeah.
thing. Um, but I don't know why there is such this like big deal around like freshman 15. Like I don't know if it's because like I didn't have like moving to college, I didn't then have the money to like buy like more clothes. Like I feel like I brought all my stuff and was like, okay, this is it. Hopefully I don't like change a size. Then I'll have to like go buy more stuff, which I don't have the money for. And maybe it was part of that, but I think it was also just like, I don't know, maybe it was society, maybe it was social media. Like I think it was
Mhm.
maybe a mixture of everything. But I do
Totally.
remember feeling like, oh my gosh, I have to weigh myself.
Yeah.
Like I'm like hoarding food because like the dining hall is closed on the weekends. I don't know. It was so weird.
Yeah, it's things like these that we look back at and kind of acknowledge that it was maybe not the healthiest, but in the moment, it's like almost this survival type thing. But that's why I think
Yeah.
it's important we raise awareness of like wanting to introspect so that way those around us can really take that time as well so they're not like just looking back in the future and saying, "Oh, that was unhealthy," but really just taking that time in the moment. So,
hmm
for sure, yeah, I think even what we learned in our internship the other day was that like the freshman 15 research has proven that to be a myth. Like the majority of freshmen don't actually gain 15 pounds or even anywhere
Yeah.
close to that. So I like remembering that as well because I want to acknowledge like what part of my beliefs are ingrained in just like societal
hmm
type of narratives that have perpetuated but aren't necessarily true and what is actually like true and based on factual evidence. And that's one of those things where we believe it and everyone's like, yeah, you know, the freshman 15. Everyone's like,
I don't
yeah.
even know where that came from. And I think I ended up like losing weight. Like I know that that was the
Mhm.
stat was that like, oh, people actually like lose weight like their first year in college just because they are so worried. And that's like what happened to me. And I'm like, where did I learn that?
No, like absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. It's not the simplest time. And I even want to acknowledge the fact that change is just such a characteristic of college. Honestly, even with every year and every semester comes an immense amount of change that is it's not simply relegated to freshman year.
hmm
Yes, that transition is truly um it's unique and it's distinct and it has its specific difficulties, but everything is always changing. We're changing our schedule. For example, last semester, my classes, the majority of them were in the night. And right now, the majority of my classes are during the day. So we're constantly having these changes that we're having to adapt to. And it can be difficult to lose that sense of control. And so sometimes when problems with eating arise is when we're not having a sense of control in our lives. And
Yeah.
because mental health conditions such as eating disorders are centered around this idea of wanting control, not in a bad way, not in a selfish way, not in a terrible way, just truly in a way where people are really trying to hold on. That is a huge aspect of disordered eating or just harmful food practices, which can spiral into disordered eating in the long term or short term. But ultimately, we are constantly in the state of change, and not having that control can be extremely distressing, extremely tolling, and it can be really, really, really hard. I think we can speak on this topic for honestly hours, or days, or years, or a lifetime. But unfortunately, we do have to cut it short a little bit. But I think that the main reason that we really had this conversation was because we wanted to start a conversation, not end one. So this is more of a pause, or a beginning rather than like stopping the conversation. The entire just point of us sharing and having Wellness Wednesdays is to engender some aspect of awareness, some aspect of community, but also actively wanting to decrease the stigma. And a huge part of that
Mhm.
comes with just speaking. So thank you for just listening to us share about some minor and major things that are going on in our life, in the lives of college students. We're just super grateful for it. And we are really also hoping that you will reach out if this has activated you or triggered you in some way, or is pushing you towards wanting to seek help, even if you don't really know what that might look like. We're going to talk about the Counseling Center resources, which are in the link in our bio, but also in our caption. And then in our caption, we're also going to have somewhere where we place the National Eating Disorders Association hotline, which you are able to reach out to. And we really encourage you to.